Not everyone has the luxury of working for an employer with a fabulous pension plan, but we'll show you how to create your own. Then you may like to drink wine on occasion, I know I do, but it can also make a great investment, and appointing a trusted contact can help you spot vulnerabilities to protect you. All this and more today on The Wealthy Life. For those of you that own your own business, you don't have an employer contributing to your pension plan for you, but you can set up your own. Joining us today is pension expert Spencer McCaig to teach us how to set up an individual pension plan. Spencer, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's nice to be here.
So what is an individual pension plan?
An individual pension plan is a pension plan that a business owner will typically set up for themselves to provide themselves with greater retirement savings than they can get out of more common vehicles like an RRSP.
So when would it make sense to do an IPP, which is the acronym for an individual pension plan, or an RRSP?
Once they're over the age of 40, that's when they become eligible to set up an IPP. That's when it starts to make a lot of sense to switch over from using their RRSP to using the IPP. One of the requirements to be eligible for the plan is you must be incorporated, as well as receiving T4 employment income from the company. If you're receiving exclusively dividend income from the company, you unfortunately will not be eligible for an IPP.
Now that's very similar to the RSP because you need actual income, not dividend income. Is that correct, to contribute to an RSP?
That's precisely right, and that's why the IPP has earned the moniker of the supersized RRSP, because it feels a lot like an RRSP. It has similar tax deductions and tax deferrals, tax incentives that are offered by CRA, but it tends to have much, much higher contribution limits than the RRSP, thus making it quite valuable for successful business owners.
So why would it have higher contribution limits, and how does that work?
An actuary calculates what can be contributed to an individual pension plan, and that calculation is based on several factors. One of the most prominent is the age of the individual. The way that RRSPs work is when these were set up many, many years ago, they came up with the 18% RRSP contribution rate, which you could think of as an average of what you should be contributing to your retirement if you were to start at, say, age 18 and fund it right until age 65.
Well, if every Canadian put 18% of their income, up to the maximum, of course, into a retirement savings vehicle, they'd be set for retirement.
That's right. A lot of people aren't going to be making the maximum contributions to their RRSP at age 18 or even through their 20s and 30s. They have a lot of other things going on. They're starting families, they're buying homes. They don't have the money sitting around to fund their retirement. And those are some of the most valuable years because they have such a long horizon to grow up until retirement. However, most people end up funding their RRSPs mainly in their 40s, 50s, and 60s when they have less time to grow. And so that RRSP 18% ends up falling quite short of what you should actually be saving to sustain your lifestyle into retirement. And that's where the IPP becomes so valuable again, is the calculation that the actuary does takes age into account and allows you to contribute much more the older you get. So you're able to take advantage of higher contribution limits as you're in your 40s, your 50s, your 60s, and into your 70s as well.
Oh, that's fabulous. Unfortunately, it's not available for all Canadians. You have to be a business owner to take advantage of this.
That's right.
So what's the process of opening an account?
First step would be to talk to a financial advisor or an accountant. They might have some experience with IPPs, and they might be able to refer you to a firm such as ours to help explore that further. A lot of firms will run complimentary quotes for IPPs, which will show how much more can be contributed, how much more assets can you as the business owner accumulate inside an IPP compared to an RRSP? And that's the bottom line that people are looking for, is how much more value they can get out of this vehicle to warrant perhaps engaging an actuary to set that up for you.
And how can they invest the money? What are the options available?
For the most part, the investment rules are quite similar to the RRSP, and most institutions that hold the RRSP assets can also open up the IPP account.
Okay, so once it's in an IPP, if I earn a really great rate of return, does that mean I don't have to put as much money in? Does it affect the contribution rates?
If you were to perform exceptionally well, you might build up so much surplus in the IPP that you may take a contribution holiday. That doesn't happen very often. A lot of IPPs carry some surplus. Some IPPs carry some deficit, which the company is actually able to top up with additional tax-deductible contributions, one of the other perks of the plan. But a lot of plans will fluctuate up and down because, of course, the investment markets, whatever they're invested in, equities, fixed income, those markets are going to fluctuate, and the IPP has baked into it an assumed rate of return that it will achieve. So some plans end up in surpluses, some end up in deficits, and it's nice to know that when your plan does fall into a deficit, your company can get a nice tax deduction for topping it up and getting those retirement savings back on track.
So there's absolutely no excuses for a business owner to not be totally prepared for retirement. Spencer, thanks for being with us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
And don't go away. Learn about wine as an alternative asset class when we return. Can your favorite adult beverage be part of your investment portfolio? Joining us now is wine expert Atul Tiwari to explain how to use wine as an alternative asset class in your investment portfolio. Atul, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Sybil.
This is a really interesting topic that has piqued my interest. Now, my favorite adult beverage would be wine, and so that's what we're going to talk about here today. How can people use wine as an investment?
Well, there's a number of ways to do so. One would be to do it yourself, which would be to purchase cases of wine, store them, and then at some point try to find a way to sell your wine. Another way is that globally there are funds available that specialize in investing in fine wine. And thirdly, you could invest with a company that will match your goals and objectives with actual cases of fine wine that they would then be able to buy and sell on your behalf.
So you let the experts do the buying and the selling, and most importantly, the storage. It might be tempting to have all that wine at home and not let it actually appreciate in value because you decide to have a drink once in a while. So
that would be tempting.
What are the attributes of a fine wine? Like, what makes a bottle of wine worth something?
Right. Well, we estimate that about 1% of all of the wine made every year around the world is investment grade. And a number of factors go into making a wine investment grade. It could be critic scores, the producer, historical price appreciation, the vintage quality. But the two most important factors are scarcity. So if there isn't much of it made, the demand is going to result in price appreciation, and longevity, because you want wines to be able to age for 20 to 30 years and also give them a chance to appreciate in price over that time.
So scarcity would be some of these higher end wineries that maybe have a select grape and only do small batches. So there's not a lot produced, but it's very high quality. Is that what you mean?
That's right. Yeah. It's about how many cases are produced by that producer of that wine in that vintage.
Now, longevity, I can see why that's important, because you buy it, you hold it. If it turns after 5 years, that's a really short window. And we know from Investing 101, the longer your time horizon, the more ups and downs you can go through and the more returns you should make at the end of the day.
Absolutely. And it also gives a chance for that supply and demand equation to work, because over time, the fine wine bottles from that vintage will get consumed, and there will be demand that continues to grow for those wines.
So, what type of rate of return can people earn on investing in wine?
Returns historically have been pretty strong. And if you look at the last 15-year period, on average, on an annualized basis, they could run from 10 to 12%. So a pretty good historical track record of returns.
And how correlated are the returns on wine compared to the equity markets in general?
Actually, returns on fine wine are very uncorrelated to returns in the equity markets. And in addition, fine wine exhibits low volatility. It's a great hedge against inflation. And it has what we investment geeks call a low downside capture, which means that when equity markets crash, wine will barely budge. And in some cases, you'll see wine appreciate.
Now, when people are going to invest in wine, there's also some downsides. What would some of those be? What's the words of caution for people before they invest in wine?
It's important that you ensure, number one, that the wine that you're investing in is in fact real wine. In other words, it's not fraudulent. And so you have to be careful in terms of what you're buying and where you're buying it from.
It's not dyed water, in other words? Corked
Correct,
in a bottle?
yes.
It's the real thing?
That's right. And that it's been stored properly, of course. Transportation is important. The insurance that is placed over the bottles also important. So those would be some of the things. And then, of course, if you're investing with the manager, the long-term track record of that manager and their discipline in their investment process.
Right. And then the liquidity factor, how easy and quickly can you get your money back out of your investment if you wanted to?
Well, that would depend on the size of the portfolio or the size of the amount you're hoping to exit. Basically, wine is a reasonably liquid investment, and there are many places where wine can be sold if you're exiting positions. And we would say that would, depending on the size of the portfolio, it could be 4 to 8 weeks. So definitely something to keep in mind as an investor.
Longer term thinking, but Atul, this is fantastic information. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks again for having me, Sybil.
And stay tuned. The benefits of appointing a trusted contact after the break. Who would your financial advisor call if they were concerned about your mental capacity? Here now is Rob Bassett, a financial industry professional, to explain the benefits of having a trusted contact on your side. Rob, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So what is a trusted contact, and how might that be different than a power of attorney?
Certainly. So a trusted contact is an individual that either your advisor or your firm can reach out to if they have concerns about maybe activity that's going on in the account. Perhaps you've started to act a little funny in one-on-one meetings with your financial advisor. Perhaps we've had troubles reaching you. Or if we need to confirm some details, like do you have a power of attorney that we can call because we do have these other suspicions.
So a power of attorney actually has control over affairs. Does a trusted contact have those same rights?
A trusted contact has no ability to pick up the phone, call your advisor, transact in the account, ask for withdrawals, change banking information, change your address or anything. It's purely like an emergency contact is the best way to think of it. Break glass in case of an emergency. If we have concerns, it's somebody we can reach out to see if we are the only ones noticing these suspicious activities, these suspicious actions that you may be taking, or in the worst case scenario, if we can't reach you. So if we've made multiple attempts to try and get a hold of you for some important issue, but for whatever reason, unusually, you're not calling us back in a prompt manner, we'll reach out and say, hey, Is there new contact information for our client?
Right, so it's a bit of a wellness check as well.
Exactly, exactly.
So some of these situations that happen, there must be some pretty good stories there that you can share.
Oh, I don't know if they're good stories, really kind of sad stories, to be honest. I mean, nobody wants to see anybody being taken advantage of, but from time to time, individuals do fall victim to scams. Whether it's, we've seen in the news, things like the love scam, things like an overseas individual that's reached out to you purporting to be your love interest going forward.
Right.
Or the grandchild scam is the latest one, where somebody pretends to be your grandson, granddaughter, niece, nephew, is in jail in some small town somewhere, and they need gift cards to get them out of jail. We come across those situations, or even worse, family members. That seems to be a relatively new issue that's popping up more and more, is where you get family members squabbling over mom and dad's assets. So you've got children now that are not acting in their parents' best interest.
So if you have some of this suspicious activity going on, the financial institution, if they're not getting the answers they want out of the client, they might contact the trusted contact just to say, hey, we have some concerns, check in, is everything all right?
Exactly. Have you noticed these same types of situations, or has somebody new sort of come into the individual's life that's now taking charge of their financial affairs? It could be a caregiver, for instance. We've had an instance where we had concerns about a caregiver withdrawing too many funds from the account. So it's not like it's one sort of thing that's strange. It's usually repeated behavior before we would pick up the phone and reach out to a trusted contact to ask them, hey, are you noticing these things? Is there somebody else we can talk to raise these concerns with?
Well, as we get older, there's a higher chance we might start to lose our marbles. Is that a reason you would reach out to a trusted contact?
Oh, definitely. I mean, if you look at the statistics, I think it's something like 76,000 Canadians a year are assessed with dementia. So that's quite a sizable portion of the population every year that's being diagnosed with dementia. So again, it's not one instance where, Sybil walks in and she says something kind of off or forgets some details about a conversation we had the other day. It's usually a few instances that we've picked up on before somebody would reach out and say, hey, something funny is going on here. Maybe I'll just reach out and confirm if anybody else has noticed these same
things. Now, hopefully people have a power of attorney set up before that happens, because that is also a really good thing for everybody to have set up. But doing that wellness check, making sure everything's okay. If everything is not okay, then you can take the right steps to make it okay.
Definitely. And most financial firms, financial advisors, they do try to proactively find out if you have a power of attorney, so that should the situation arise and somebody comes knocking on the door holding the power of attorney, they're already familiar with that individual, or at least aware that that individual has been named with the power of attorney. In instances, though, where we haven't received a power of attorney, we may be asking those questions of the trusted contact. Are you aware of who's in the individual support group that we can reach out to? And that could be somebody like a power of attorney above and beyond immediate family members that we may not be in regular contact with.
Now, having a trusted contact in addition to a power of attorney is probably a good idea in case the power of attorney is taking advantage of the individual.
As the trusted contact, you shouldn't name the power of attorney as the trusted contact. You also you should avoid situations like the trading authority being named as the trusted contact, or even somebody with a financial interest in your account. It's always best if it's somebody more at arm's length with no inherent conflict of interest in the situation.
So where do people go to set up a trusted contact?
So as part of the account opening process, financial firms will ask you if you'd like to provide a trusted contact. They'll also, during their regularly scheduled reviews with clients, ask them at that point in time if they haven't provided one, if they would like to provide one, or if there's been a change to the trusted contact and they would like to name somebody else.
Rob, thank you for being with us today. That was very informative.
Thank you.
Don't go away. Learn how to start investing at any age when we return. Welcome back. Thanks for your emails and social media messages. We love hearing from our viewers. Today's question is from Harmon. Dear Sybil, I want to start investing, but I'm a bit overwhelmed with it all and therefore keep procrastinating. Where do I start? Gracefully, Harmon. Well, Harmon, it's fantastic to hear that you want to get started with investing right away, because the sooner you start, the more money you will accumulate over your lifetime. So where do you get started? Number one, set some goals. Pick some goals that you get really excited about. You might want to buy a new car. You might want to retire one day, but that may seem too far out. But it's important to start now. When you have some goals set that you're really driven to achieve, you'll be motivated to put the money aside. Then you need to calculate how much money do you need to save to achieve your goals. If you're not really sure, I have a rule of thumb. If you can put aside either 10 or 20% of every paycheck towards investing, you'll be able to achieve most all of your goals over your lifetime. Just get it set up automatic so you don't even have to think about it. So that'll get you started, but here's where the complicated part comes in, and here's where I think you're feeling a bit overwhelmed. How do you invest your money? Take the time to educate yourself on the different investment options available. There are low-risk investment options, and there are high-risk investment options, and there's everything in between. The more you learn about the different options available, the more informed you will be in making the right decision. Lower risk investments tend to have lower rate of returns, but higher risk, you may lose some money, you may make a lot more. Working with a financial professional and/or doing some research online will help get you to that place you need to be to make the right decisions. Then you just open an account and get started. And finally, don't forget to monitor your investments as you go. Check in every month and see what your investments are doing. Are they behaving and performing as you expected? Hopefully this is the help you need to get started. And that wraps up this edition of The Wealthy Life, helping you make smart financial decisions. Join the Wealthy Life Club and you'll get access to everything you need to live your version of the wealthy life.